She stood at attention beneath the alien sun, her boots sinking slightly into the silver sand of the arena. The sky above was a static bruise of violet clouds and unseen orbiting drones. Everything here smelled sterile, except her, Juno Kale, who still carried the scent of old leather, sweat, and grit from Earth's forgotten outer colonies. The other cadets towered over her. Some shimmered with translucent skin, others breathed through armored slits. They didn't speak, not to her. Not unless it was to sneer. She was the only human, the only mammal without bioluminescence, claws, or antennae. The translator embedded in her ear still lagged behind by a half-second. That, more than anything, made her feel like prey. She didn't flinch when the instructor entered. Zoom moved like a predator that had forgotten it once hunted for food. His limbs curved in unnatural ways, forearms folding neatly across his chitinous chest. He didn't walk, he glided. Each step reverberated through the arena floor with a subsonic frequency designed to impress dominance into the spinal column. Juno didn't show it, but it worked. Her fingers tingled. Her back went stiff. Human, the translator finally caught up, his voice like crushed glass wrapped in formality. Kneel. She hesitated, not out of rebellion, but uncertainty. Was this ceremonial? A test? The handbook hadn't covered posture, and no one had spoken to her since arrival. That second of pause was all he needed. The blow came fast, silent, and with surgical cruelty. His elbow struck across her face with a precision that was nearly academic. There was a sharp, wet crunch as her nose folded sideways. She staggered. One knee hit the ground. Her vision fractured. No one moved. No one helped. Failure to respond to command. Crack's voice remained neutral, as if noting down the weather. Reset protocol begins now. She tasted blood. Not just copper, but iron, dust, and humiliation. Her breathing went ragged. Reset protocol meant more than pain. It meant another round of public degradation, another note added to her file. It meant they'd start the day over, pretend she hadn't existed for the past hour. But she stood. A slow, vertical climb, bones grinding. Her chin lifted. Her nose, visibly crooked, leaked a line of bright red down the center of her mouth. She didn't wipe it away. She didn't ask for a medic. Reset not required, she said, voice hoarse. Crack's gaze narrowed. For the first time, there was a pause. Small. Dangerous. He didn't respond. Just turned and walked away, his final words spoken through posture. Insignificant. Juno remained standing long after the others had dispersed into the next training module. She wiped her face only once they'd gone. It wasn't bravery. It was calculation. She wouldn't give them a single frame of footage to broadcast her suffering. Back in the dormitory cube, bare, white, humming with low electromagnetic static, she sat on the edge of the cot and took the standard-issue sanitation cloth. It smelled faintly of mint and ammonia. She cleaned the blood from her chin, then braced herself. One breath. One push. She shoved her nose back into place with a wet snap. Her vision sparkled with stars. She didn't scream. On Earth, they'd called her stubborn. Her mother used to say it like a curse. Her father used to say it like a prayer. Now it was all she had. She opened her personal log. No one was meant to know she'd hacked the system to keep a private record. But she had. Of course she had. Log entry candidate. Juno Kale. Trial day 1. He broke my nose. Publicly. They watched. Laughed. Logged my vitals like I was a malfunctioning drone. It was a warning. I received it. And I remember. Her fingers hovered over the terminal. She added one more line. Pain is not the enemy. Forgetting is. The next morning came too early. The lights in the training center didn't fade in. They snapped to full, sun-white blinding. Her head throbbed. Her nose, even hastily set, pulsed with heat beneath the skin. Still, she lined up with the others. The session was hand-to-hand tactics. A misnomer, given that half of her peers had claws, wings, or hive minds. Her assigned partner was six-legged and smelled like rotting citrus. It clicked and twitched in ways that made her skin crawl. But she stood her ground. They sparred. She fell, got up, fell again. Blood came often. Apologies, never. By midday, she was smeared with red and gray dust, her right eye already coloring. Her body felt borrowed, every joint overstretched, every breath shallow. She didn't quit. Not once. Rack watched, silent, evaluating, occasionally tilting his head at angles humans weren't meant to interpret. Her pain tolerance is unusually high, one instructor noted to another in what they thought was a private frequency. She lacks finesse, the other responded. But the adaptation rate is noteworthy. They thought that was a compliment. Juno logged it for later. The cafeteria that night was quieter than usual. Conversation flowed around her like she wasn't there. She didn't mind. Better ghosts than insults. Her tray held protein paste and 2 pills, one for healing, one for sleep. She only took the first. In the corner of the room, one cadet stared at her too long. Not a threat, just curiosity. A reptilian species with spiraling eyes that blink sideways. She stared back until they looked away. Later, in her cube, she removed her shirt and examined the bruises across her ribs. Some were nearly black. Her right arm trembled when she tried to lift it. She smiled. It wasn't joy. It was recognition. Her body had started building resistance. Every contusion, a lesson. Every torn muscle, an equation solved. She logged again. Log entry, trial day 2. They want me to break. I will bend instead. The bones will knit stronger. The bruises will teach. She stared at the screen, considered her next words carefully. The moment they think I've adapted is the moment I begin my study of them. Midnight. She couldn't sleep. The air buzzed with electrical fatigue. In the hall outside her cube, she heard a skitter of limbs and a faint chime. Some other cadet returning late from punishment. Juno sat in the dark, upright. She remembered the look in Hrack's eyes after he struck her. It hadn't been personal. That was the insult. To him, she was below contempt. A demonstration object. A data point. That would change. She replayed the blow in her mind, not with pain, but with precision. She studied it frame by frame in memory. The angle of the elbow. The speed of approach, the weight distribution. In time, she would learn more. She'd understand how their joints locked, where their balance failed, which sounds made them flinch. But tonight, she only had her pain. It was enough. She whispered one sentence before drifting into shallow, adrenaline-laced sleep. I will not forget the sound of your joy. And when she closed her eyes, she saw not the arena, nor the sun, nor the blood on the floor. She saw Hrack's spine, held in her hand. Not yet, but soon. And that was the end of day 1. She woke before the lights, before the synthetic dawn could simulate the sun. Her body, bruised and uneven, had learned the rhythm of alien control. Punish first, teach second. No dreams anymore, just flickers of memory looping beneath her ribs like old pain waiting to resurface. Juno Kale didn't believe in destiny. She believed in patterns. And lately, she'd started noticing cracks. The translator chip always clicked twice before Hrack-Zune entered a room, even when muted. The taller species had a tell, a dilation of the throat sac before strike. Her bruises weren't trophies, they were flashcards. By day, she played the role they wanted. Quiet, submissive. The lone human girl in a sea of design perfection, dragging her battered limbs through drills, unable to lift the training pikes with the ease the others had hardwired. Her gait had grown unnatural, adapted to fake gravity and unkind floors. But by night, she trained alone. Not in sanctioned drills, those were rigged. Instead, she practiced movements older than most of the species in this room. Wrestling grips, counter leverages, elbow locks, human techniques bred in dirt, not data. Built by survivors, not strategists. No cameras in the waste recycling corridor. Just silence and concrete slick with condensation. Here, under buzzing maintenance lights, she replayed every fall, every strike. Alone, yes, but not unarmed. Every part of her had begun to transform. The ache in her side wasn't just bruised tissue. It was knowledge. The way her shoulder pulled wrong was the result of 2 bad landings. She studied it like a scientist, dissecting her own evolution. She watched the others too. Varn cadets moved as if physics owed them favors. Their fighting styles leaned on strength and symmetry. But they were predictable. Every kick arced the same way. Every dodge followed programming. They hadn't learned to bleed. They'd only learned to win. And there it was. The difference. Humans remember the cost. That was the advantage. During mid-cycle sparring, she fought a twin-bodied cadet named Liksha. Its limbs moved in perfect rhythm, like mirrored scythes. The match was supposed to be symbolic, another staged loss. But Juno didn't fall when expected. Instead, she shifted her weight at the last second, letting Lik's own momentum drag it off balance. She didn't strike, not yet. She simply didn't lose. That caught Rak's eye. He didn't say anything. But she felt it, the pause again, the microscopic break in posture that meant he was starting to see her. Not as a threat. Not yet. As a variable. Back in her cell that night, her knuckles raw and her heart steady, she opened her journal again. Log entry, trial day 5. They train for dominance. We train for survival. Dominance cracks under surprise. Survival does not. She wrote slowly, finger stiff. They think our pain is a defect. But pain is where we learned the outlines of the body, where the soul decides whether it's worth staying in. She closed the log, eyes burning from the harsh overhead light. A knot clicked against the frame of her cell. She turned, already wary. It wasn't an instructor. The cadet, standing outside, was shorter than most. Insectoid, green-husked, his arms jittered in small pulses, controlled tremors. His name was Reddick. Barely spoken to anyone since the orientation, and no one had cared to understand why. You move oddly, Reddick said in fractured basic. Juno blinked. And you think this is a conversation starter? A pause. Then a sound she realized might be his version of a laugh. You fall differently. Not uncalculated. That is rare. You watch me fall? I notice patterns. That made her pause. Because that's what she did too. You move like a fractured echo, she said. Because I am. Reddick tapped the back of his skull, where metal met carapace. Implants. Rebuilt memory stack. Some pieces corrupted. He shuffled awkwardly, then held out a data chit. What is this? Martial forms. Not standard dominion. Old ones. Before simulation. Thought you'd adapt faster than they want you to. She stared. No one here had given her anything but bruises. Why? She asked softly. I do not forget kindness. He lowered his hand. And they will not be kind. She took the chit. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Thank you, she said. Reddick's pupils contracted, the only sign of surprise. No one here says that. They should. He left with a twitch and a half salute. She sat with the chip in her palm for a long while, uncertain if she'd just made an ally or accepted bait. Still, she plugged it in. The footage was raw, low-res, shaky, likely salvaged from pre-Dominion sources. Warriors without polish. Fights without rules. Real combat, not choreographed displays. She memorized every motion. Log entry. Trial day 6. There's more than one way to break a god. On the training floor, she started integrating the new movements. Not enough to draw attention. Just enough to stay on her feet longer. When Hrak observed, his mandibles twitched. He wasn't sure what had changed. That unsettled him. During break cycle, she heard her name across the room. Not spoken gently. Human. Hrak's voice, this time public, addressing her across the arena with open disdain. You've been active. I wonder if your efficiency matches your arrogance. She stepped forward slowly, hands behind her back, head tilted just slightly in the manner of Earth military challenge. I follow every protocol, she said calmly. Then you won't mind a demonstration. He motioned to the floor. Match me. A chill ran down the spines of every watching cadet. She could say no. Refusal would not technically disqualify her, but it would cement her status, fragile, fearful, forgettable. She stepped forward. The crowd's anticipation thickened the air. Reddick flinched. Hrak stood still, for arms relaxed at his sides. "No weapons," he said. She nodded. Her palms sweated. Her back tensed. But her eyes never left his feet. He attacked fast, same as before, an elbow angled toward the cheekbone, an exact replica of day one. This time she ducked. Her foot swept low, catching his back ankle. Not enough to trip him. Yet. Enough to earn his focus. He adjusted, claws slicing the air. She dodged sideways, his strike grazing her shoulder. She caught the rhythm. Predictable, practiced. She feigned left. Dropped to one knee. Drove her palm up under his ribs, just below the lowest plate. It hit. Not hard enough to win, but hard enough to register. He paused. Just for a breath. Then stepped back. The room was still. Watching. Crack smiled, not with lips, but posture. A tight, coiled expression of calculation. "Noted," he said. She exhaled only after he turned. Her legs shook for the next hour. But she didn't fall again. That night, her fingers shook too hard to type. But she forced them to move. Log entry, trial day 7. He used the same opening move. That means he believes in muscle memory more than reflex. He relies on dominance, not unpredictability. His faith in his own invincibility is the crack I needed. She added one more line. The way he looked at me changed. He saw something. Not fear. A mirror. The next morning, Reddick left a small vial near her tray. It was unmarked, save a symbol etched with a laser, an old Earth glyph, Delta. She didn't ask what it was. She tucked it into her boot. When the instructors called for field simulation rankings, she placed third. That shouldn't have happened. The data core would flag it. Inquiry would follow. It didn't matter. The dominoes had started falling. In the next simulation, she let herself lose. Barely. Just enough to recalibrate expectations. But not before demonstrating a maneuver no one had taught her. One from the data Chit Reddick gave her. Rack saw. This time, he didn't just note it. He smiled. And Juno smiled back. Her bones still ached. Her jaw clicked wrong when she chewed. But she was being seen now, not as a symbol, but as a problem. That was progress. And problems, if left alone long enough, become catastrophes. She would be one. The trial was not just ceremonial. It was spectacle. For the Varn Dominion, it marked the end of training and the beginning of servitude. Cadets would graduate as tools, polished, sharpened, and ready to slot into war hierarchies with obedience hard-coded by trauma. The final test, as always, was designed to break anyone who had somehow avoided shattering before. Juno Kale stood in the staging chamber, her heartbeat a steady pulse beneath her collarbone. She'd wrapped her ribs with recycled bandage strips from a downed medpack, memorized the rhythm of her own blood. Her fingers traced the grooves of her practice staff like rosary beads, each dent a prayer in the old language of survival. She was last in the roster, purposefully. Her entire presence here had been a message, and now it would become punctuation. The Dominion didn't want a human to win. They wanted one to last long enough to be seen losing. The announcer's voice echoed from the arena's high walls, translated, magnified, emotionless. Final combat trial, Cadet Juno Kale. Opponent, Crack Zune. She didn't flinch. Reddick, stationed in the medical alcove under an observer badge, twitched hard when her name was called. He blinked his spiraled eyes once, slow and deliberate. She nodded back. The doors slid open with a hiss of hydraulic contempt. The arena was not dirt. It was glass. A polished surface meant to reflect the victor, distort the defeated. Lights moved in track spirals overhead, painting long, predatory shadows. Around the rim, Dominion officials floated in their observation thrones, limbs folded like sleeping spiders. Crack stood at the far end of the arena, unarmed, forearms down, back straight. His carapace glistened under the lights, polished black and etched with silver command sigils. His posture was casual. He wasn't concerned. Of course he wasn't. This was a message, not a match. Juno walked to her mark, slow and deliberate. Her staff, a composite of tungsten and alien alloy, felt heavier than usual. Or maybe she was tired of carrying decorum. When she stopped, the silence rang. "Begin," the announcer intoned. Hrak didn't move immediately. He tilted his head, studying her like a biologist, studying a bird that refused to die. "You're not ready," he said, loud enough for the observers to hear. Juno smiled. "Then finish me quickly." The first blow came fast, a downward slash from his upper right arm, a feint to bait her into blocking high. She didn't. Instead, she stepped into his swing, catching his inner elbow with the flat of her forearm and twisting, redirecting his weight. He adapted, of course. He always did. But she was no longer fighting to win. She was fighting to teach. Pain lanced through her side when his knee caught her hip. She stumbled, rolled, and came up into a lower guard, watching his feet. Hrak circled slowly now, calculating. "You've learned," he said, mildly surprised. "I've studied," she replied. "You repeat yourself." He struck again, more vicious this time. She blocked two, absorbed the third with her forearm, and redirected the fourth with a pivot of her weight. Blood welled from her lip. A crack echoed through the arena as her shoulder caught a glancing strike. But she didn't fall. Hrak's voice dropped to a private frequency. "You think your cleverness will save you?" "No," she said aloud. "But your predictability will kill you." Murmurs rose from the observers. Juno shifted her stance. Staff low, chin tucked, muscles tight. She had one shot. Not at victory, but at visibility. If she could land one undeniable, unignorable hit, she could tear a hole in their illusion of superiority. Hrak advanced again, faster this time. Fluid and brutal. 3 limbs striking in tight formation, while the fourth curled defensively near his core. She took 2 steps back, then reversed, forward, into his reach. She ducked under the top strike, twisted inside the second, and slammed the butt of her staff upward, hard, into the thoracic groove below his third heart. A crack. A sound she hadn't heard before. Wet, muffled, personal. Hrak staggered. He hadn't expected that. Hadn't prepared for it. Juno pressed her advantage. No theatrics. No flourish. Just a flurry of brutal, short strikes. She targeted joints, pressure points, nerve clusters she'd memorized from Dominion medical files and Reddick's whispered advice. Every blow was a line of her thesis. Humans adapt faster than you think. Hrak recovered quickly, but not cleanly. His next strike was wide, and she ducked. She swept his legs. He tumbled, less like a predator, more like mass emotion. The room didn't cheer. It watched. Hrak roared in the native Varn frequency, no translation, just guttural static that made the walls tremble. He rose with fury, not calculation. He launched himself, abandoning all form. Every limb aimed to break. She was ready. Juno dropped to her knees, not in submission, but to bait gravity. Hrak struck, and she rolled under it, caught his bottom left leg, and twisted. He fell again, harder. And that was when she saw it, his lower back, unguarded for the briefest second. She struck, staff snapping into the socket where nerve met armor. Hrak convulsed. His body went rigid. The crowd surged forward in their thrones. She rose. Hrak tried to stand, and failed. He slumped forward, breathing hard, 2 arms twitching. His eyes flickered with the wrong color. "Stand," she said. Silence. "You're not done, Hrak. Dominion doesn't let weakness stay down." He did not move. And just like that, she understood. He wasn't paralyzed. He was calculating again. Not a fighter now, but a politician thinking of optics. If he rose and lost, he would fall harder. If he stayed down now, it could be spun. Disqualification due to combat excess. Human cadet removed from course. She turned slowly, staff still raised. "Is the trial over?" she asked the air. The announcer's voice returned, stuttering. "Final combat concluded. Human cadet disqualified for excessive aggression. Trial terminated." There it was. The exit. The spin. A punishment that served their image. But they couldn't erase what they'd seen. The crowd didn't cheer. But it remembered. Juno stepped off the platform. Her body screamed. Her lungs burned. Her shoulder may have been dislocated. But she walked, not limped. Reddick met her just outside the chamber. You struck his command spine, he said. I aimed for what hurt. He handed her a cloth. They will talk about this. Good, she said. Let them talk before they run. She sat later that night, arm in a sling, voice low as she recorded her last log. Log entry. Trial day 10 final. I broke no rules. Just illusions. She hesitated, then typed one last sentence. He taught me what pain was. I taught him what humans do with it. The broadcast, of course, would be edited. Her most vicious strikes would be cropped. Her stare likely removed. Her final words replaced by a glitch. But they couldn't erase the crack in Hrack's form. Couldn't erase the way he'd stayed down. And somewhere out there, some other species would be watching. They'd see her, bloodied, disqualified, smiling, and wonder, what kind of species fights like that? What kind, indeed? She exhaled, closed her eyes, and waited for the war to begin. She waited. They sent her home in a vessel barely larger than a coffin, unarmed and unsung, the message clear. Dismissed. No official record of the trial. No footage of her final blow. No mention of Hrack Zun's defeat. Just a digital signature verifying that the human had been removed for non-compliant behavioral integrity. It was how empires cleaned their messes, with paperwork and silence. The ship drifted in subspace, a cold corridor between humiliation and the next question. Juno Kale sat with her arm in a sling, the Dominion's standard-issue uniform still smeared with old blood and oil. They hadn't even given her a new shirt. That was fine. Her nose still carried the faint ridge of Hrack's elbow from day one. Her shoulder had been realigned with gritted teeth and a metal rod she'd broken off the medical bay wall. She refused sedation. She wanted to remember everything. She watched the stars bend, fracture, smear against the dark. And then something changed. At first it was subtle. An echo in the ship's hum, a ripple in the gravity, that made her breath catch. The display on the far wall flickered. A Dominion seal appeared, then glitched, stuttered, and vanished. Then came the voice. Juno Kale. Confirm identity. She stared. That voice was too human, too calm. It didn't belong to this ship. Confirmed, she said warily. Trajectory diverted. Coordinates. Unregistered outer ring. Arrival in 17 minutes. She stood, slow and steady. The transport was no longer a coffin. It was a weapon. The ship dropped out of slip space with a lurch that made her knees buckle. Outside the viewport, a planet hung silent and gray. No atmosphere. No terrain markings. Just a vast, smooth surface pockmarked with installations. One, directly below, opened. She descended without command. No guards met her. No soldiers. Just a corridor of flickering lights, humming with a different kind of power. Older, hungrier. At the end of it, a door. Behind it, a voice. You were not supposed to survive. Hrack. Juno's spine straightened. Her sling dropped. Her arm, still aching, moved on instinct. She stepped through. He sat in a recovery chamber. No throne. No armor. One of his limbs twitched involuntarily every few seconds. A neural bypass port pulsed at the base of his skull, its light dull, faltering. He looked smaller. Not physically. No, he still towered, but presence was not size. You're healing, she said. He gave the insectoid approximation of a smirk. The Dominion does not waste what it invests in. You lost, she said flatly. They erased it. She nodded. I remember, she said. He blinked slowly. That is the human flaw. You cannot forget. It's not a flaw, she replied. It's a promise. He exhaled a wet, whirring sound. They sent you back here to kill me? They sent me nowhere. This wasn't a rescue. It was a return. She stepped closer. No weapon in hand. She didn't need one. He shifted, suddenly unsure. You came for vengeance, then? She tilted her head. You think this is about revenge? You broke me in front of the Dominion. You broke my nose, she said. I taught you to stand. You taught me to study. Hrack stood, slow and uneven. His fourth limb dragged slightly. The bypass port sparked once. I could still kill you. You could try. They stood there, breath for breath, mirror to mirror. A human and a war architect. Two scars in the shape of sentience. He moved first. A lunge, clumsy compared to before, but fast. His lower arms swept low, aiming to trip, while his upper reached for her throat. Juno ducked, shifted, let her heels slide across the polished floor, catching his weight, guiding it, not stopping it. He crashed into the wall. She twisted behind him, her arm wrapped around his chest. Her fingers found the port. His body froze. "You taught me how you're wired," she said into his ear. He thrashed, but not fast enough. She pulled. The sound wasn't human. It wasn't alien either. It was mechanical and wet and final. The neural spine detached in a spasm of flickering light and screaming static. Crack collapsed. Juno stood over him, holding the spine like a sword forged in silence. It was heavier than she'd expected. Warm. Still twitching with dying impulses. She didn't flinch. She looked up at the cameras, because of course there were cameras. "This is not vengeance," she said to the lens. "This is record-keeping." The footage broadcasted itself. Dominion encryption had always been laughable to human improvisation. Within minutes, every hidden channel lit up. Pirate streams, resistance signals, even civilian bands picked it up. The image, a small blood-smeared woman holding an alien instructor's twitching neural spine like it was a flag. She walked out of the chamber without looking back. Back to the ship. Back to space. She didn't wait to be welcomed. She wasn't interested in medals. She wasn't coming back to a hero's welcome. She was returning as evidence. Weeks passed. Messages came. Offers. Some wanted her to train others. Some wanted to study her. One Terran admiral wanted to clone her. She didn't respond. Instead, she returned to Earth. Not to the cities. To the dirt. A quiet patch of land that hadn't seen war in years, where wind still moved like breath across grass. She built a cabin with her hands. One wall held a single item, the neural spine, now dried and cold, encased in transparent alloy. Not as a trophy, as memory, a reminder of what humans do when pushed far enough. One night, a child from the valley came up the path. A girl with sharp eyes and a head full of questions. "Is it true," the girl asked, "that you broke an alien in half?" "No," Juno said. The girl frowned. "But the stories." "I didn't break him," Juno said. "He built himself like glass." The girl considered that, then pointed at the case. "Did it hurt?" Juno's gaze lingered on the spine. "Yes," she said. "Good," the girl replied. They both laughed. The sound carried, soft and long, over the hills. Later that night, Juno sat outside, watching the stars. Some still carried Dominion ships. Some didn't. She sipped tea from a chipped cup. Listened to the wind. The Dominion never came for her again. They learned. Not from her words. Not even from the footage. They learned from the silence that followed. From the cadets who started hesitating when told to attack a human. From the soldiers who glanced twice at Earth soldiers before dismissing them. From the whisper that moved through barracks and war rooms and command halls like a virus. We were never weak, just quiet. And when the Dominion launched its next expansion war, they avoided Earth's colonies. Not out of diplomacy, out of dread. Because somewhere in the back of every commander's mind was the image of a small woman, dragging a neural spine through a polished hallway, breathing steadily through blood and victory. They didn't know her name, but they remembered. And that, in the end, was enough.